contrast their reactions and behavior of our intended user group. The interaction session was video recorded, followed by an interview. So what was the most interesting moment for us was the unintended interactions. For example, as you can see here, we have a child that uses his foot and his hand to try to interact with the whole book. And we also noted that many children during the interaction session tried to dismantle the book. So you can see that here. And why they did this? Just out of curiosity. So another example is where a child brought her favorite toy with her to play with the book. So this was a lot of unintended interactions that we did not really expect in our study.
Yeah, and after having analyzed this user study, we then conducted 3 expert interviews, as already said. We wanted to discuss the results on the background of an expert's perspective of how developmental psychology and media usage could actually go hand in hand. For that, we designed a semi-structured interview guide with open questions ranging from early development over media usage to what toys and playing actually means for a child. So we were able to interview, finally, a professor of cognitive development and cognitive psychology and early development, an expert for early media usage and video gaming, and a professional in education who was a director in a Waldorf kindergarten. All interviews, each interview lasted around 45 minutes. In parallel to these expert interviews, we conducted a focus group session with parents. The 6 participants had children that were aged between 4 months to 8 years. And the goal of this focus group was to gain a better understanding what actually does it mean, how children play, what parents actually expect from such an e-text type book, and to reflect our results on the parental perspective. The session lasted 2 hours, and it was a mix between discussions on our research and our designs and activities where the parents got more creative concerning and created book stories for maybe a next version of the prototype. As a result, we were able to phrase a few design recommendations which follow now. So what as the characteristics of the interactions that we shall implement for this very young age group? At first, we argue for one-step and age-appropriate interactions. What does it mean? So the test users under 3 fully engaged with the simple characters of the interactive book that we provided, whereas the older ones were quickly bored and demanded more complex stories from such a book. So infants have a limited attention span and memory ability. That's why one action should follow or should trigger one effect without much delay at the end. Further, children do not easily discover new actions. For instance, pulling the fish's tail in our study was not discovered by the youngest at all. So they are usually used on a flat surface to mainly press something, not pull something. So that's why I didn't discover it. And at the end, this means that interaction needs to be easy to perform for the relevant age group. It needs to be age appropriate. Next, the featured interactions should guide a child's entertainment and provide variability in input and output modalities. That means the interaction should not get boring, but keep the child entertained and curious in a certain way. For instance, our test users from all age groups started disassembling the book at a certain point, and after having discovered everything. So we should guide the child's attention away from seams and fasteners in this case. Further, our test users often tended to explore the book with their whole body. Discussing this unintended interaction with experts and parents revealed that children not yet use a book as we adults are used to use a book, so sitting down and looking at it. That's why a toy should inherently train motor skills and provide diverse ways of interaction. In addition, what digital effects should a smart toy provide for the youngest Preeta?
So for digital effects, the textbook or a toy should subtly enhance the interactions that children are already familiar with. Therefore, the effects should not be flashy, noisy, or be annoying, but rather calming and relaxing. And also the digital effects should be very diverse. So a positive example from our prototype was the firefly. It attracts the child's attention through this one small LED light on its lower body, and when touching it, the stars on the opposite page brighten up and not getting too bright. The next is where young children seek the feeling of security and familiarity. Therefore, a black box effect should be avoided. So interactions and effects need to be as transparent as possible, and the child should not be confused. A very good example from our own prototype, where some infants were confused, was by our singing fish.
Yeah, because the fish is usually not singing. Yeah. And finally, how should we design an e-textile book or a smart soft toy in general for the under 3-year-old?
So we need a suitable and developmental supportive book that allow for whole body interactions and as well as shared interaction or shared experience. So our studies showed that children of all age groups explored their book with their full body, and they also cuddled the book. And almost all children involved their parents in this play session. We uncovered a number of requirements for toddlers for easy stories and addressing all senses, such as brief stories and short interactions where everything is explained in just a sentence or an image. And the design and the story should always address all senses using different materials or invite touch and interaction. And the last is parents are also our stakeholders. Therefore, we must design books keeping them and addressing their needs as well, such as having toys that is calming, materials that is washable, robust, and having very low voltage electronics, therefore prioritizing e-textiles.
Thank you for your attention. Please read our article if you are interested in more details, or write us if you are interested in further information. And for now, we are happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Michael Amali, University of Siegen from Germany. Because of social constructions in our society, technology is considered to be more of a boys' thing. So did you see any gendered differences in your study, and do you think that your technology can be a game changer here for access to girls?
This main study that we did was not about the gender equality of thinking what toys we take for each gender. It was more on the focus of what kind of interactions can we introduce to them at an early age. That was more our focus, and we wanted to show that we have something outside of smartphones and tablets that children can actually use and learn certain interactions and enhance their developmental skills, like the motor skills, and start at the early stage of cognitive development. This was more our focus rather than the gender study, so to say.
Okay, no, I was just interested.
But you're right. In general, at this age, we could already introduce gender towards female or male, and it's up to us as designers and researchers to either prevent or to support this path. So, right. Like the industry does, yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jared Duval, UC Santa Cruz. Great talk. I also have found that children love destroying the things that we make and the tangibles, and I was wondering if you have any thoughts on how we might design it so they also want to fix it after they destroy it.
We had we had an interesting discussion on that in our parental focus group. It was a daddy who is a tinkerer by himself. And we came up with story ideas to actually support children in creating something. So instead of disassembling, doing the other way around. But we all agreed on it that the under 3-year-olds don't really get the concept at all. So it's at this age not yet a question to engage them to put things together. It's more for the older age groups, I agree, but for the younger, it's just the point that we need to prevent them from disassembling it because it could get dangerous if they reach the technology. Yeah.
Adrian Schneider, Queen's University in Canada. I'm wondering, you mentioned earlier on that, I can't remember your exact wording, but it was something like experts recommend that children not be using any digital devices at all before the age of 4. Why is that?
It's difficult. They leave it kind of open. For instance, there is a framework on designing tangible devices for children by Antler. I think it published in 2007, if you might know it. And she addresses only children that are older than 4. One point is the cognitive development at that stage, because it's different, and it's quite different before or under 3. Under 4 or 3, you don't have a real cut at the age. I lost my path. Could you repeat your question?
I was wondering, is there a reason experts say, digital devices are terrible for young children, like it'll explode their brains or whatever?
And actually all experts who are addressing digital technologies for children always say we don't address the under 3 years old or the under 4 years old, but don't give a real reason for that. And this is something we want to explore as well. So this is one, we didn't find an answer yet.
Yeah. Right,
And
well,
also from the study from 2015, what we just mentioned, they said that children given under 3 years old a smartphone, they freeze looking at the screen. They don't really move around. And that's very, very untypical for a child to not move around. They freeze looking at the phone, and it's just the fingers that move. And normally a child should be still when sleeping. But when looking at a digital smart device, for example, a smartphone or a tablet, they freeze in that situation. And they are so into the whole smartphone that they forget the whole movement.
This is an answer by a cognitive psychologist, for instance, who says never hand over technologies that keep them away from moving their body, because this is important for the sensory motor development at this age. So it's not fully clear yet, but thanks for the question.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks again.
Yeah.